On ABC is dying. He was the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards.
J.D. Vance hasn't been under a microscope like this since his wife asked him why the couch was so sticky. But Trump had good advice. He told him, just have fun. And you know what? It seems like he did.
I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
That's how you get the single cat ladies back on your side. You know, in some ways, you can't help but you kind of feel sympathy for J.D. Vance having to defend Donald Trump, who he himself openly denounced. It's kind of like being Diddy's defense attorney.
Damn.
We know there are a few things that can get under Trump's thin skin, like Jimmy Kimmel. So I cannot wait to hear Trump's response to Kimmel's thoughts about Vance being fact-checked at the debate.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank you,
Margaret. The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And
you watch this. If you cannot say what happened in 2020, and the only reason you're there is because what actually happened in 2020 is that Donald Trump sent his supporters to hang Mike Pence. Just ask them.
Yeah.
Then you lose. And I think that you know, Governor Walz had a lot of great moments. Tim Walz built that perfect artifice. I mean, J.D. Vance built this perfect artifice. He was speaking as though he were running to be Mitt Romney's vice. I mean, he was, like he spoke tonight. It was a performance that was kind of amazing and totally disconnected from the person who he's running with, Donald Trump.
But still unable to say that Trump lost the election in 2020.
In that moment,
unable to say it.
In the moment, I think everything that he did for 88 minutes was lost and wiped out by that one inability to tell the truth in front of a huge television audience.
Vance's debate performance was scarier than Trump's. He showed us what a MAGA candidate will be like in a post-Trump era if we do not resoundingly defeat them in November at the ballot box. Because unlike Trump, who when he lies tends to exaggerate, doesn't really offer any details around it, you know, most of his followers know he's lying most of the time. They just don't care. But when Vance did it on the debate stage, he did it in a way that was believable. He was polished. He was articulate. He made up details to support his lies, and he bullied CBS into not fact-checking him before the debate. So millions of Americans who don't know enough about what he said think what he said was true. Let's take healthcare, for example. Now we know the reason why Republicans aren't calling it Obamacare anymore and are now calling it affordable healthcare, because now that it's successful, they want to take credit for it. J.D. Vance said on the stage that it was Trump who saved healthcare in a, wait for it, bipartisan fashion. Now we know that is nothing further from the truth. Walz, you know, he defended that on the stage. But that sounds more like a debate than a moderator saying that Trump actually tried to repeal the Obamacare, but it was Senator McCain who saved it, not Trump who saved it. But that comment will be clipped and shared on social media, and younger people who didn't live through that may very well now believe that it was Trump who saved the affordable health care, which now I'm always going to be calling Obamacare, so they can't co-opt it. And the fact is that we may be now debating this point with our neighbors and our friends of who exactly enacted Obamacare. This was how dangerous Vance was on that stage, not being fact-checked. But he didn't just lie so boldly about healthcare. He also lied about immigration.
And bigger picture, Julie, there was also a key moment on healthcare.
Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill.
So if you're one of the tens of millions of Americans who now depend, Julie, on Obamacare for your health care, what do you hear there? Well, you hear that you're going to be able to keep it. You hear that you're not going to be tossed off of your insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. It means that if you're a woman, you're not going to be paying more for your health care than a man. It means that when you go for your annual checkup, you're not going to get a bill for it the way you did before Obamacare.
Does J.D. Vance say what he said thinking that it would, because it is provably untrue, as Tim Walz pointed out, right? So why do you say it?
Because it's a fire hose of lies. Because J.D. Vance lied time and time and time again. Let's call this for what it is. I mean, everybody's being very nice about that. He was saying that he was slick. He was, erudite. No, he lied. He lied and he lied and he lied. And he got upset about it when the moderators, for one small instance, fact-checked him. Well, he should be fact-checked again. And frankly, I'm surprised that Governor Walz didn't fact-check him much more. But the reality is that Donald Trump did everything he could to overturn Obamacare. The only reason it's here today is because John McCain, is one of the last acts of his life, decided to save it.
I mean, Vance has a lot of lies about immigration, especially toward the Haitian community in Springfield. But on the debate stage, he specifically talked about immigration and immigrants taking jobs. He said, quote, "And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our country. And by the way, that will be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work." So let's take a look at exactly how is immigration affecting the workforce? Well, as it turns out, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, yes, the department of our government who collects this kind of data and that Senator Vance clearly would have access to, over the last 12 months, immigrants who are part of the workforce has grown by nearly 1.5 million people, while those born here in the workforce has shrunk by 768,000. But that's because people that were born here have retired. And we as a population are not growing that much. If we didn't have immigrant workers, we would actually have an economy that's shrinking. So immigrants are actually joining the workforce and helping lifting up the economy for all of us. And not only that, they are not taking the jobs away from people that are born here. And you can tell that also from the statistics. I know Vance said he doesn't like to listen to the experts, but the experts are the ones who actually collect the data that maybe you should be basing national decisions on. So according to the data, the working age men that were part of the workforce in August was 89.5%. So 89.5% of Americans born in this country, the men who are in the workforce, is 89.5%. And that is higher than all but 1 month during the Trump administration, higher than when Trump was president. And that the share of working age women who were born in this country was the highest it has ever been, which is 78.4%. So to his point that people coming into this country are taking jobs of people born here, that is not showing to be true, because more people born here are part of the workforce than they have ever been. What is happening is that they are helping lift up our economy because they are working in jobs that need people, but we as a population are not growing enough to satisfy those jobs.
And then I think at the very end of the debate, we saw something extraordinary. Tim Walz asked J.D. Vance if Donald Trump lost the election. He was incapable of answering that simple yes/no question. J.D. Vance can only get so far from the man at the top of the ticket, and that was on display in that one moment.
Let's take his quote about fentanyl. He says, quote, "A lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. Kamala Harris let fentanyl into our communities at record levels," end quote. This is the kind of bold lie he was able to say in his polished, articulate way, and did it without any fact check because he bullied the moderators to do it. And now millions of Americans may believe it because he said it in a way that makes him sound reasonable, but you are still lying, because the fact with fentanyl is actually really the opposite. So close to 90% of illegal fentanyl is seized at border crossings. actually at border crossings. 90% of it is seized, and that it is seized by people who are legally authorized to cross the border, which makes sense. If you're trying to smuggle drugs, wouldn't you give it to people who are most likely able to cross the border? Otherwise, you're going to lose all your drugs. So that's actually the reality and the facts of fentanyl, which of course, as a senator, he has access to. And that more than half of the people crossing the border with the illegal fentanyl are U.S. citizens, and that virtually none is seized from migrants seeking asylum, which is Vance and Trump's, hatred to people fleeing, violence and things in their own country, to come over and blaming them for problems in our country. So virtually none of the illegal fentanyl is seized by the migrants seeking asylum. And that the fentanyl related deaths, which is a real problem in this country, has actually dropped by 10% last year. 10%, while Biden, Harris were in office. Donald Trump gets so bothered by Jimmy Kimmel's astute observations, he even takes time at his rallies to call him out. Let's watch.
And ABC is dying. He was the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards. Remember I did that? Remember I wrote I put a truth. Everybody should go to Truth immediately. And by the way, we also love Elon, I have to tell you. Gave me a big endorsement. Big one. But remember in the Academy Awards, I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards. And this stupid guy goes up, and just before the Best Picture of the Year, the show is almost over. They're waiting for the Best Picture of the Year. He gets up and he says, and his wife said, please don't do it. Please, darling, don't go out. His manager said, don't do it. I have to do it. He goes out and reads my truth to the entire audience right before the best prime time, the Best Picture. And it said basically, he is the worst host in the history. He reads the whole thing. And then I think he said something like, ha, 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 he thinks he bothers me or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife. What a dope.
But since you think my wife gives good advice, maybe here she is with some advice. Molly, please.
Hey. Support. And I'm glad I have your attention because 1 in 3 women currently in this country is living under an abortion ban because you stacked our Supreme Court. Thanks to you, women in 21 states can't make their own choice about their own life and their own body. And 10 U.S. states make no exceptions for rape or incest. The party you run so bigly and so beautifully, the party that cares so much about motherhood, just blocked a bill that would protect our access to IVF. Women are dying and good doctors are quitting because they can't get or give the reproductive care women desperately need. So my advice for you is to shut up and go away. Go to Mar-a-Lago. Spend all day, every day, cheating at golf and masturbating to Newsmax and let a competent woman take over. That's my advice. Thanks for listening.
She says the same to me. Thank you, Molly. What's with the trophy?
Oh, this is the Emmy that I won for executive producing the Oscars that were hosted by the worst host in history.
Well done. Now get home and make me dinner.
No!
You know what? I'm just kidding. She can't cook at all. I do all the cooking.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.